Welcome back. Just last 6 minutes of trade and the markets have indicated resilience, you will have to say. I wouldn't be surprised if they even crossed 8,700 and closed above that number, which will be a huge shot in the arm for the bulls for sure. We'll get to Ashwini in a minute to check if there is a last minute trade. Gautam Sinha is also joined us, and of course we've been speaking with Mr. Tulsian and Parag Thakkar. Gautam, good afternoon. Does it look like this there is a firm bottom in place for this market? I mean, it's bouncing off fairly resolutely.
Yeah, I think, market, even if there is a correction, it shouldn't be a very deep correction, given the global liquidity environment and India being one of the countries where there is yield and growth. I think there's a lot of global money which is looking for yield today, and that is the biggest support for markets. And also, I believe that we are in a earnings upgrade cycle already. So that will also help markets keep improving from here. And interest rates also seem to be firmly headed downwards too. So all three most important factors are positive. That definitely should provide a lot of support to the market. Only risk is if some global catastrophic event happens, but that is anybody's call, right? So we cannot call that. If that happens, yes, then things can go for a toss. But that should be a good opportunity to add positions in Indian markets.
Gautam, that's the strongest statement we have heard on earnings. The trend is firmly up, you say, in terms of earnings ratings. We'll come back to you with a little more detail. Let me just ask our chartists if there is any buy to be executed in the last few minutes. Ashwini, you will go with long positions home on the Nifty?
Well, Bank Nifty is what gave the buy signal, in the last half an hour. So that is where people should be long. Try to get long on other private banks also, like HDFC Bank, which also seem like they have bottomed out. PSU banks like PNB, etc. have restarted their rallies, and surprisingly tech stocks are doing very well. So things like TCS or NIT Technologies, etc. They could do well. Apparently, it seems there's a change of sentiment that now these stocks probably have priced in the worst news, and you could actually have the IT stocks participating with banks to take the market higher. So have a mix of banks and IT as you go home, and I think next week you should be rewarded.
Okay, well, talking about banks, Parag, you have a whole host of banks that you're recommending as well. Kotak Mahindra Bank is something you like?
Yes, definitely, because see, I think it is one of the most well-managed bank, very disciplined lender. They have not lended to highly leveraged corporates in the last cycle also. Most capitalized, 15.4% tier 1, and most importantly, see, one story which builds up in PSU banks, which is like credit cost coming down. That is also going to happen with Kotak, because their ING Vaishya Bank, when they took, the integration happened, and the credit cost increased to 85 bips. Now this year their guidance is 50 bips. So there also you are going to see significant recovery in terms of reduction in the credit cost. The cost to income ratio is also going to go down. And they are so much well capitalized that they can grow at 20% for many years. So your earning growth is going to be in excess of 25%. So apart from something like SBI, which also we like, or ICICI Bank on dips, where this deleveraging cycle is going to play out and reduction in the credit cost is going to happen. But Kotak is of course a strong buy.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask Gautam that question which I left off. Strong earnings upgrade cycle. Gautam, strong words. Which sectors? Just now we've been slapped with an ACC number which kind of dimmed the prospects of earnings upgrade.
I think banks will lead the way, definitely. Most strong contribution should be banks. OMC should do well going forward too. They have done well in the past. Pharma would also be one of the sectors which will lead. A little bit of turnaround in sectors like metals and industrials will definitely add to quite a bit to overall index earnings, because these were really the cause of depression in earnings, if you see, for the last 3 years. So one thing is the base, and the base will definitely help in sectors like PSU banks, metals, industrials, and then there would be the structural growth stories, most importantly banks, I think, going forward.
All right. Well, those are the sectors that have just done well because of a story we broke that coated steel products will get protection from Chinese dumping at a price of $849 per ton. That was Anshu Sharma's story. Well, we are in the last 1 minute of trade, and so let's read out to you. The numbers look very good. It didn't look as good any time of the day, except perhaps in the opening bell. The markets are closing with practically no losses for the Nifty. It would perhaps go closed at about 8692, missing the 8,700 by a whisker like it did yesterday. The Sensex will go home with again a 0.1% cut, not much. 28,000 still conquered, and 28,100 could be the close. Best performances coming in from the tech stocks. HCL Tech, of course, got rewarded for its numbers, but Tech Mahindra got rewarded even more, 2% higher on that stock. Idea too did well, 2.25 on that stock. Among others, Dr. Reddy's, again a story which CNBC TV 18 broke about their Srikakulam plant probably clearing the Canadian Drug Authority, and that stock is going up with 1.3% gains. HUL, IndusInd Bank, TCS, HDFC Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, BPCL, Wipro. Wipro's results are due. All these are the ones that have shouldered the recovery in the index. Ashwini has been telling us from the word go, he would look at IT and banks, and those seem to be the shoulders on which this recovery has been staged. Nifty Bank itself goes home with a 0.25% gain after being in the red for a goodish bit. The mid-caps, of course, are the better performers. Just a word more on the big boys. Axis has not been able to perform despite so much of good news and despite of push from the index itself. The general ambience also has not helped that stock. Probably the overhang of Suti remains.
Oh yes, in the mid-cap space, as you mentioned, the mid-caps have done better than the frontliners, so up 0.3%. The market breadth though was split right down the middle, so you didn't get a real sense of the trend today. In terms of mid-caps, you had names like JBM Auto, Jai Bharat, Maruti that did very well, up 16 to 20%. In result reactions, Nucleus Software and Kaplan Point were two stocks that did well, up almost 13 to 15 odd percent. You also had names like Heikel, PNB Gilts, Rane Engines, a couple of other stocks that did quite well today. So that's the list of mid caps. On the losing end, you didn't have much actually to worry about. In fact, just some stocks. NBCC was down 3.5%. Suzlon down almost about 2% or so. And from the frontliners, it was Hindalco and Vedanta. Metal stocks were under pressure today. But let's get some closing comments in. Ashwini, so the Nifty continues to be range bound between 8,500 to 8,720 or so. Do you get a sense that anytime soon this range could be taken out either way?
Well, given that the dip came and the dip wasn't too much more than 50 points, that means, 8,700 is probably not throwing the market back towards a new low. Now, that being said, if IT or something else could, participate with the banks, chances are 8,750, maybe next week could be crossed. And once that's crossed, a lot of naysayers and, short sellers, etc., they would cover. And that would propel the market higher. So you should be, going home long rather than short. And it looks like, we are going through a mild consolidation before the market picks up again. So if IT and banks can participate together for a change, I think life would be a little easier next week.
All right. Thank you very much, Ashwini, for that advice. And that's a positive one, for especially if you are a bullish trader. Well, with that, we have to thank all our guests, Gautam, Mr. Tulsian, Parag, Ashwini and Mitesh. Thank you very much for joining in and taking us through the last hour of trade. The markets bouncing is the positive from this week and from the weekend. The negative will be the dismal performance of ACC, but as Mr. Tulsian pointed out, he would give the benefit of doubt to the company, and so there is a positive hue even to that. The stock actually bounced off from its day's lows after the numbers. It's time now to come to the Money Control closing bell question of the day.